I called out my unemployed brother for being babied by his rich wife and got banned from family dinners. 6 months later, he thanks me for changing his life. I'm Tanya, 35F, and I've always been the responsible one in my family. Growing up, I was the kid who got straight A's, never missed curfew, and always had a part-time job. My parents used to joke that I was born middle-aged. I went to college on a scholarship, got my degree in accounting, and landed a job at a prestigious firm right out of school. Now, I'm married to Clyde, 37M, and we have 2 kids, Carol, 7F, and Noah, 5M. We live in a nice suburban house with a white picket fence and all that jazz. I work full-time and manage our household, which isn't always easy, but I take pride in keeping everything running smoothly. Then there's my younger brother, Sean, 25M. To say we're different would be an understatement. Where I was always focused and driven, Sean was. Well, Sean. From a young age, he struggled with paying attention in school. He was the kid who'd forget his homework, lose his backpack, and get distracted by a butterfly during soccer practice. Our parents took him to countless doctors, and when he was 14, he was finally diagnosed with ADHD and anxiety. I remember the day of his diagnosis clearly. Mom cried with relief, saying, "Finally, we know what's wrong." But Dad just looked worried. I was 24 at the time, already working and engaged to Clyde. I thought the diagnosis would be a turning point for Sean, that he'd finally get the help he needed and start to get his act together. Looking back, I realize I didn't understand how complex ADHD and anxiety can be. Throughout high school, our parents bent over backwards to accommodate Sean. They hired tutors, had endless meetings with his teachers, and even let him drop classes when things got too stressful. I tried to help too, spending hours trying to teach him algebra and edit his essays. But it always ended in frustration on both sides. I couldn't understand why he couldn't just focus, and he felt like I was judging him, which, if I'm honest, I probably was. When Sean graduated high school, barely, our parents were ecstatic. They threw him a huge party, inviting the whole extended family. I remember feeling a twinge of resentment. My high school graduation had been a quiet dinner at a local restaurant. But I pushed those feelings aside, telling myself that Sean needed the encouragement more than I did. Sean started college that fall, and I really thought things would turn around for him. He was on medication for his ADHD and seeing a therapist for his anxiety. But 3 months into his first semester, he called Mom in tears, saying he couldn't handle it. A week later, he was back home, college dreams abandoned. For the next few years, Sean bounced from job to job. He'd start something with enthusiasm, barista, retail clerk, dog walker, but it never lasted more than a few months. Each time he quit or got fired, our parents would console him, telling him he just hadn't found the right fit yet. They paid his rent, bought his groceries, and never pushed him to try harder. I bit my tongue, but inside, I was seething. I had worked so hard for everything I had, and here was Sean, skating by on our parents' goodwill. Last year, Sean met Lily, 24F, at the coffee shop where he was working at the time. Lily is. Well, she's something else. She comes from old money, the kind of wealth where you never have to work a day in your life. She's an aspiring artist, which seems to mostly involve posting artfully arranged lattes on Instagram. But she took to Sean immediately, saying she found him refreshingly genuine compared to the people she usually hung out with. Their whirlwind romance was like something out of a movie. Within 6 months, they were engaged. Our parents were over the moon, especially Mom. She kept saying how Lily was exactly what Sean needed and how she would take care of him. The wedding was a lavish affair, all paid for by Lily's parents. As a wedding gift, they bought Sean and Lily a house, a freaking house, in one of the nicest neighborhoods in town. After the wedding, Sean quit his job at the coffee shop. He said he wanted to focus on his mental health and find his true passion. Lily was completely supportive, saying that Sean needed time to find himself. And so, for the past 3 months, Sean has been. Well, I'm not sure what he's been doing. From what I can gather, he sleeps late, plays video games, and occasionally strums a guitar he bought but never learned to play. The situation came to a head last week at our monthly family dinner. These dinners started as a way to stay connected when I moved out, but they've become a bit of a production since Sean and Lily got married. Mom pulled out all the stops, her best china, a fancy roast, the works. As we sat around the table, Mom couldn't stop gushing about how wonderful Lily is and how she's saving Sean. "You should see their house," Mom said, beaming. "It's always spotless. Lily does all the cooking and cleaning, manages their finances, and she even lays out Sean's clothes for him every day. It's like she's an angel sent from heaven to take care of our boy." I felt my jaw clench. I looked at Sean, who was slouched in his chair, looking completely content as Lily cut his meat for him. Something in me snapped. "Don't you think it's time you learned to be independent?" I said, My voice sharper than I intended. You're 25, not 5. Lily's your wife, not your mother. The table went silent. Sean looked like I'd slapped him, and Lily's eyes filled with tears. Mom immediately jumped to their defense. Tanya, how can you be so insensitive? You know Sean has struggles. We should be happy he found someone who understands him. But I couldn't stop. Years of pent-up frustration came pouring out. Struggles? We all have struggles, Mom. But we don't all get to opt out of adult life because of them. Sean hasn't worked in months. He doesn't cook, he doesn't clean, he doesn't manage his own finances. What happens if something changes? What if Lily gets sick? What if her family has financial troubles? Dad tried to change the subject, asking Noah about his latest Lego creation, but I pressed on. Sean, you need to start taking responsibility for your life. You can't rely on Lily and her family forever. What are you contributing to this relationship, to your household? Lily burst into tears and left the table. Sean followed her, shooting me a glare that could have melted steel. Mom was livid. How dare you? She hissed. You have no right to judge their relationship. You're just jealous because you have to work so hard while Sean has found an easier path. Not everyone has to struggle to be worthy, Tanya. I was stunned. Jealous? Of what? A grown man who can't even do his own laundry? I looked at Clyde for support, and he nodded slightly. Look, he said, his voice calm, Tanya could have been more tactful, but she's not wrong. Sean is an adult. He needs to start acting like one. The rest of the dinner was excruciating. Sean and Lily didn't come back to the table. Mom alternated between angry silence and passive-aggressive comments about how some people don't understand the challenges of neurodivergence. Dad tried to keep the peace, but the tension was palpable. As we were leaving, Mom pulled me aside. You need to apologize to Sean and Lily, she said. You ruined this dinner with your judgmental attitude. Until you do, you're not welcome at family dinners. I was too shocked to respond. Clyde and I gathered the kids and left, the drive home silent except for the kids' chatter in the back seat. Now, it's been a week. My parents are barely speaking to me. Sean hasn't responded to any of my texts. Clyde supports me, saying I said what needed to be said, but he thinks I could have chosen a better time and place. I can't help but think about my own kids. What am I teaching them if I stay silent about this? Do I want Carol and Noah to think it's okay to coast through life, relying on others to take care of them? But then I think about Sean, about the challenges he's faced, and I wonder if I'm being too hard on him. I don't think I was wrong, but the family tension is getting uncomfortable. Did I overstep? Should I apologize just to keep the peace? Or do I stand my ground? Ida for telling my brother he needs to learn to be independent? Update 1, it's been about 2 weeks since the disastrous family dinner, and a lot has happened. I want to thank everyone for their input on my original post. It gave me a lot to think about, especially regarding my own attitudes and assumptions. First, I want to address something many of you pointed out, that I shouldn't have confronted Sean in front of everyone at dinner. You were right. It wasn't the time or place for that conversation, and I realize now that it probably made Sean feel attacked and defensive. That wasn't my intention, but impact matters more than intent. The day after I posted, I decided to reach out to Sean directly. I was nervous, we've never been great at talking about serious stuff. When we were kids, our conversations usually ended with me lecturing and Sean shutting down. But I knew I had to try. I texted him asking if we could meet for coffee, just the two of us. To my surprise, he agreed. We met at this little cafe near his house. It's one of those hipster places with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. When I arrived, Sean was already there, fidgeting with a sugar packet. He looked smaller somehow. Tired. It hit me that I couldn't remember the last time I'd really looked at my brother, not just seen him. At first, it was pretty awkward. We made small talk about the weather, about my kids' latest antics. But then I took a deep breath and apologized for how I handled things at dinner. Sean nodded, then surprised me by apologizing too. I know I'm not where I should be at my age, he said quietly. I see you with your job and your family, and I feel, I don't know, like I'm always 10 steps behind. That's when the dam broke. Sean opened up about a lot of things I hadn't known or understood before. He told me about how overwhelming he finds adult responsibilities. Things like job hunting, paying bills, and even making phone calls can trigger his anxiety. He described it as feeling like he's drowning in expectations he can't meet. It's not that I don't want to do these things, he explained, his voice frustrated. It's that every time I try, my brain goes into overdrive. I start thinking about all the ways I could mess up, all the things I need to remember, and I just freeze. He told me about his time in college, something we'd never really discussed before. How he'd sit in lectures, desperately trying to focus, only to realize he'd missed half of what was said. How he'd stare at his textbooks for hours, the words swimming before his eyes. How the constant feeling of falling behind, of not being good enough, had eaten away at his self-esteem until he couldn't take it anymore. Dropping out felt like failing, he said, but staying felt impossible. I listened more than I talked, which is probably a first for me. As Sean spoke, I realized how little I knew about his daily struggles. I've always seen his ADHD and anxiety as excuses, not real challenges. I felt pretty ashamed of my own lack of empathy. But I also expressed my concerns. I told Sean that while I'm glad he has Lily's support, I worry about what would happen if something changed in their relationship. What if Lily got sick? What if her family had financial troubles? I gently suggested that it might be good for him to start building some independence, not to replace Lily's support, but to complement it. To my surprise, Sean agreed. He admitted that he sometimes feels guilty about how much he relies on Lily. She never complains, he said, but sometimes I see her looking tired, and I hate that I'm adding to her stress. We talked about small steps he could take, maybe volunteering somewhere to build his confidence, or seeing a therapist to work on his anxiety. Sean seemed interested in the idea of volunteering at an animal shelter. I've always been good with animals, he said. They don't judge. As we were leaving the cafe, Sean hugged me. It caught me off guard. We haven't hugged since we were kids. You know, Meg, he said, you've always been so put together. I've been jealous of you for years. I thought you had it all figured out and looked down on me. That hit me hard. I realized that while I've been judging Sean for his struggles, he's been feeling inadequate compared to me. It was a real wake-up call about how our perceptions of each other have shaped our relationship. I apologized again for how I handled things at the family dinner. Sean apologized too, saying he knows he needs to start taking more responsibility. We're not magically fixed, but it feels like we've turned a corner. We've agreed to have regular sibling catch-ups, just the two of us. After I left Sean, I called Mom. That was a tough conversation. She's still upset with me, and she made it clear that she thinks I'm being too hard on Sean. But I tried to explain my perspective, that I'm worried about Sean's future and that I want him to be able to stand on his own 2 feet. She didn't entirely agree, but I think she understood where I was coming from. Dad called yesterday, and we had a good talk. He admitted that they probably haven't helped Sean by always rushing to his defense, and he appreciated that I was trying to mend fences. Your mother and I, we just wanted to protect him, Dad said. But maybe we've been protecting him from the wrong things. I haven't spoken to Lily yet, but Sean says she understands and isn't angry with me. He told me that after our coffee meeting, he and Lily had a long talk about their relationship and future plans. They're planning to start couples therapy to work on communication and shared responsibilities. We're planning another family dinner next month. I'm nervous about it, but also hopeful. Clyde has been incredibly supportive through all of this. He reminded me that families are complicated and that it's okay for healing to take time. I know we have a long way to go, but for the first time in years, I feel hopeful about my relationship with my brother. This experience has taught me a lot about empathy, about the dangers of making assumptions, and about the importance of really listening to each other. Thanks again to everyone who offered advice and perspective. Your insights have been invaluable, and I'm grateful for this community's support. I'll update again after the family dinner if there's anything significant to report. Update 2. It's been about 2 months since my last update, and I wanted to share some developments in our family situation. The family dinner we had planned went surprisingly well. There was some initial tension. Mom was a bit cold towards me at first, and Sean looked nervous. But everyone made an effort to keep things civil. We had a no phones at the table rule, which helped keep everyone engaged in conversation. Lily was there, and I made a point of talking to her one-on-one. I apologized for my behavior at the previous dinner and thanked her for being so supportive of Sean. She was gracious about it and even shared some of her own concerns about Sean's dependence. I love taking care of him, she said, but sometimes I worry that I'm enabling him rather than helping him grow. The big news is that Sean has started seeing a therapist specializing in ADHD and anxiety. It was actually Lily who encouraged him to go. She'd been doing some research and found a therapist who uses cognitive behavioral techniques specifically tailored for adults with ADHD. Sean has been going for about a month now, and while it's early days, he says it's helping him understand himself better. It's like I'm finally getting an instruction manual for my brain, he told me during our weekly video call. I'm learning strategies to manage my symptoms that I never knew existed. One of the techniques his therapist suggested was breaking tasks down into smaller, more manageable steps. Sean has been practicing this with household chores. He proudly told me that he's now in charge of doing the laundry, something that used to overwhelm him completely. I used to look at a pile of dirty clothes and just shut down, he explained. But now I break it down. Sort the clothes, that's step 1. Put a load in the washer, that's step 2. It's still hard sometimes, but it feels doable now. In a surprising turn of events, Sean called me last week to ask for advice about job hunting. He said he wants to start contributing more financially, but he's nervous about the process. We had a long talk about breaking the job search into manageable steps and the importance of celebrating small victories. I suggested he might want to start by updating his resume and looking for part-time positions that align with his interests. He liked the idea and said he talked to Lily about it. It felt good to be able to offer constructive advice without judgment. Our parents are coming around too. Dad called me the other day to say he's proud of how Sean and I are working on our relationship. He admitted that he and Mom had been enabling Sean's dependence out of fear. We were so afraid of him failing that we never gave him the chance to succeed, he said. It was a powerful moment of self-reflection. Mom is still a bit protective of Sean, but she's making an effort to be more balanced in her approach. She started attending a support group for families of adults with ADHD, which has given her new perspectives on how to support Sean without enabling him. One thing that's been eye-opening for me is realizing how much pressure I've put on myself over the years to be the responsible one. Talking to Sean has made me reflect on my own life and the expectations I set for myself. Clyde and I have had some good conversations about division of labor in our own household, and we're working on finding a better balance. There was a small hiccup last week when Sean missed a therapy appointment and didn't reschedule right away. I found myself slipping back into my old judgmental mindset, but I caught myself and instead offered support and encouragement. It's a learning process for all of us. Lily's parents invited our whole family over for dinner next month. I'm a bit nervous about it, given the wealth disparity and the history of tension, but I'm trying to approach it with an open mind. Sean seems excited about it, saying he wants us to see the life he and Lily are building together. On a personal note, this experience has made me think a lot about how I'm raising my own kids. I've realized that I sometimes put too much emphasis on achievement, and not enough on emotional well-being. I've started having more open conversations with Carol and Noah about feelings and mental health, trying to create an environment where they feel safe discussing their struggles. Overall, things are moving in a positive direction. It's not perfect, and there are still challenges, but I feel like we're all making an effort to understand each other better. I'm learning that family relationships are complex and ever-evolving, and that's okay. I'll update again after the dinner with Lily's family if there's anything significant to report. Thank you all for your continued support and advice. Update 3. It's been about 6 months since my original post, and I wanted to give a final update on how things have progressed with Sean and our family. The dinner at Lily's parents' house was an eye-opening experience. Their home was beautiful but not as ostentatious as I'd imagined. Lily's parents were welcoming and down-to-earth, which helped ease the tension. During the evening, Lily's dad mentioned that he struggled with ADHD as a young adult too, which led to an open conversation about neurodiversity and the challenges it can present. It was enlightening for all of us, especially our parents. Sean has been consistently going to therapy and says it's been incredibly helpful. He's learned coping strategies for his anxiety and ADHD, and he's been slowly taking on more responsibilities at home. He's now in charge of laundry and grocery shopping, and he recently started volunteering at a local animal shelter once a week. It's a small step, but it's boosted his confidence significantly. The biggest surprise came last month when Sean announced that he's enrolling in some online classes to finish his degree. He's starting slow with just 2 classes, but he's excited about it. Lily has been incredibly supportive, helping him set up a study schedule and create a dedicated workspace in their home. Our parents have made progress too. Mom has become more involved in her ADHD support group, even organizing a workshop on supporting adult children with ADHD without enabling harmful behaviors. Dad has been making an effort to spend one-on-one time with both Sean and me, which has helped balance the family dynamic. As for me, I've been working on being less judgmental and more supportive. Sean and I now have a standing weekly video call where we catch up and check in on each other's goals. It's been great for our relationship, and I'm learning a lot about patience and understanding. There have been setbacks, of course. Sean had a week where he fell behind on his chores and schoolwork, which led to some tension with Lily. But instead of spiraling, he reached out to me and his therapist for support. We talked through some strategies, and he was able to get back on track. It was a proud moment for me to see him handling challenges in a healthier way. I've also been reflecting on my own life and realizing that I often put too much pressure on myself to have everything perfect. Seeing Sean's progress has inspired me to be more gentle with myself and to celebrate small victories in my own life. I've started a mindfulness practice and am working on setting more realistic expectations for myself. Last weekend, we had another family dinner, and the difference from that first disastrous meal was night and day. There was laughter, open conversation, and a genuine sense of support for each other. Sean even cooked part of the meal, a new recipe he'd been practicing. It wasn't perfect, but we all appreciated the effort and enjoyed the meal together. As we were leaving, Sean pulled me aside and thanked me. He said that even though my approach wasn't great at first, he's grateful that I pushed him to be more independent. He said he feels more confident and capable than he has in years. It was a moment I'll cherish for a long time. I know we'll still have challenges ahead. Sean's journey towards independence is ongoing, and there will likely be bumps along the way. Our family dynamics are still evolving, and we're all learning how to support each other while maintaining healthy boundaries. But I'm hopeful for the future in a way I haven't been in years. This experience has taught me so much about empathy, communication, and the importance of supporting each other while also encouraging growth and independence. It's reminded me that people are complex, and that compassion and understanding can go a long way in healing relationships. While this will be my last update on this situation, I'll carry the lessons I've learned here with me for years to come.